Welcome to Life Stories. Have you ever fought for something you truly believed in? Imagine finally achieving your lifelong dream, only to have someone try to take it away. That's exactly what happened when my friends and I bought our dreamland. Only to face an angry neighbor who refused to accept reality. From endless confrontations to shocking acts of revenge. This is a story of resilience, conflict, and ultimately, finding peace. Stay tuned and subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's journey. Let's dive in. Growing up in a small rural town, I was surrounded by the kind of beauty that made you feel both infinite and small at the same time. Towering oak trees stretched toward the sky, their leaves whispering in the wind like old friends sharing secrets. The creeks were clear enough to see every pebble at the bottom. And the stars at night shone so brightly they felt within reach. Nature wasn't just a place I visited, it was my home. My refuge, my teacher. As kids, my friends and I spent hours exploring the woods, building forts out of fallen branches, and skipping stones until our arms ached. Summer days were sticky with humidity, filled with the chirping of crickets and the rustling of unseen creatures in the underbrush. Winters were crisp and silent except for the satisfying crunch of fresh snow beneath our boots. It was a simple life, one that didn't demand anything from us except our appreciation. But as we grew older, the world pulled us away. College, jobs, the relentless pace of city life, it all chipped away at the simplicity we had once taken for granted. I found myself in a career that paid well, but the trade-off was clear: the nights were never truly dark. The air never smelled like pine and damp earth. And the silence I had once loved was replaced with the constant hum of traffic and the glow of artificial lights. Still, the longing never left me. I chased it in small ways: weekend camping trips, hiking adventures, fishing in whatever lakes and rivers were within driving distance. But it was never enough. I wanted more than just borrowed moments. I wanted a place that belonged to me. A place where I could breathe again. I wasn't the only one who felt this way. My closest friends, Jake, Emily, Ryan, and Madison, each had their own reasons for craving an escape from the grind. Jake, who had been raised by a family of outdoor enthusiasts, often spoke of the camping trips he missed from his childhood. Emily, a financial planner constantly juggling high-pressure clients, dreamed of unplugging from the noise and living somewhere peaceful. Ryan, with his love for cooking over an open flame, imagined hosting cookouts under the stars, surrounded by laughter and good food. And Madison, well, she had always been a free spirit, drawn to the idea of waking up in the wilderness with no calendar, no obligations, just the open sky above her. For years, we sat around campfires, beers in hand, fantasizing about our dream retreat. "Imagine owning a place like this," Jake would say, gesturing toward whatever stretch of forest we were camping in that weekend. No deadlines, no traffic, just trees and stars. No neighbors blasting music at 3 in the morning. Emily would add, rolling her eyes. Ryan, ever the dreamer, would take it a step further. We could build a little cabin, maybe a deck, maybe even a hot tub. And Madison, always pushing boundaries, would smirk and raise her drink. Why stop at one cabin? Let's go full commune. I call dibs on the treehouse. It was fun to dream. But that's all it ever was, a dream. Or at least, that's what we thought. Then, one night, everything changed. We were sitting by the fire, the Milky Way stretching above us in a dazzling river of light. When Madison leaned forward, her eyes shining with determination. "Why just imagine," she said. "Let's actually do it." We laughed at first. Of course, Madison would say something like that. She was the one who once convinced us to hike 10 miles off trail just to see a waterfall she had read about online. But as the laughter died down, she pressed on. "I'm serious," she said. "We all want this, right? So why not start making it happen? We save some money, keep an eye out for land, and when the time's right, we go for it." The idea stuck. What if we could really do this? What if, instead of just talking about it, we turned the dream into a plan? Emily, who loved spreadsheets almost as much as she loved the outdoors, created a detailed savings plan for each of us. Jake, with his endless knowledge of real estate websites, took on the role of researcher, scouring listings like it was a second job. Ryan volunteered to check out potential properties on weekends, turning every road trip into a scouting mission. And I, with my background in civil engineering, started sketching out wild ideas for cabins, campsites, and everything in between. It wasn't just about saving money, it was about the promise of something bigger. Every dollar we put aside, every late-night brainstorming session, every hopeful conversation around the fire, it all brought us closer to the moment we were waiting for. Then, after years of planning and saving, we found it, 15 acres of heaven. The land was everything we had imagined and more, rolling green hills that stretched as far as the eye could see. Clusters of ancient oak trees standing like guardians of the past. And a gentle stream winding through the center. Its waters so clear you could see every pebble at the bottom. It was just far enough from town to feel like an escape. But close enough that we weren't completely cut off. For the first time in our lives, the dream wasn't just a fantasy. It was real. It was ours. And we had no idea what was coming next. The excitement in our group was electric as we planned our first weekend on the land. It felt surreal. After years of dreaming and saving, we were finally setting foot on property that belonged to us. No more renting campsites. No more worrying about park rules or curfews. This was our place, and we could shape it into whatever we wanted. We packed as if we were embarking on a month-long expedition instead of a simple weekend trip. Ryan borrowed his uncle's camper. Emily brought a portable grill. Jake and I handled the tents and tools, while Madison, true to form, showed up with nothing but a duffel bag filled with snacks and enough beer to host a small festival. Driving down the gravel road toward our land, my hands tightened on the steering wheel, a mix of anticipation and disbelief settling in my chest. The moment we crossed onto the property, we all fell silent. The view was breathtaking. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the hills. The stream glistened like liquid silver, and the trees swayed gently in the evening breeze. Holy hell, Jake breathed. We actually did it. We should name it, Madison said, hopping out of the truck before I'd even put it in park. She stretched her arms toward the sky. Something good. Something that sounds like freedom. Camp Freedom? I suggested. Boring. Havenwood? Emily offered. Too serious. What about Booze Creek? Ryan said with a grin. Nodding toward the stream. Madison gasped dramatically. Sold. We laughed, clinking our beer bottles together. For the first time in years, we felt like we had truly arrived, like we had carved out a little slice of the world just for ourselves. We spent the next few hours setting up camp. The tents went up first. Then Ryan carefully maneuvered the camper into the perfect spot near the area we planned to turn into a fire pit. By sunset, we were sprawled in our camping chairs, cold drinks in hand, watching the sky shift into brilliant shades of pink and orange. This is perfect, Jake murmured. And it was, until she arrived. It started with a sound, a sharp, high-pitched voice that cut through the peaceful silence like a blade. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I turned, startled, as a woman emerged from the tree line near the edge of our property. She was middle-aged, dressed in an aggressively pink tracksuit. Her dark bobbed hair rigid with precision. Even from a distance, I could see the way her face was pinched with barely contained fury. Madison, mid-sip, nearly choked on her beer. Who's that? The woman stormed closer, jabbing a finger in our direction. This is private property. You can't just set up camp wherever you feel like it. I stood, trying to stay calm. Hi, can we help you? Her eyes narrowed. You can start by packing up and getting out. I frowned. Ma'am, this is our property. She crossed her arms, her expression darkening. That's impossible. The owner would never sell this land. Especially not to people like you. The condescension in her voice sent a flicker of irritation through me. But I forced myself to stay level-headed. We worked directly with the seller. I explained. We can show you the deed if you'd like. I don't care about your so-called deed. She snapped. My family has been using this land for over 20 years. This is our land, and you're trespassing. Emily, ever the voice of reason, stood beside me. With all due respect, that's not how property ownership works. Everything is legal and verified. You're welcome to check with the county records. The woman, Debbie, as we would later come to know her, waved her hand dismissively. I don't need to check anything. I know this land. She was practically vibrating with rage, her face turning an alarming shade of red. Then, with a final huff, she threw her hands up. Fine. If you won't leave, I'm calling the sheriff. And with that, she stormed back toward her house. At first, we just stood there in stunned silence. Then Ryan cracked open another beer and smirked. Well, he said, raising his drink, that was something. Madison clinked her bottle against his. To our first Karen encounter. We all laughed, but as the sun dipped lower and the first stars blinked into the sky, I found myself glancing toward Debbie's house. She was watching us from her window, arms crossed, face locked in a scowl, and I had the sinking feeling that this was far from over. The night after Debbie's dramatic departure, we tried to shake it off. After all, what could she really do? We weren't breaking any laws. And we had every right to be there. Ryan grilled burgers over the fire. Madison told one of her ridiculous stories about a disastrous date she had in New Orleans, and for a while, everything felt normal again. But every time I glanced toward her house, she was still there, standing at her window, watching. Do you think she actually called the sheriff? Madison asked as she poked at the fire with a stick. Emily shook her head. Doubt it. She's bluffing. Even if she did, we have nothing to worry about. She was right. We had all the legal paperwork proving we owned the land. But still, something about Debbie's anger unsettled me. It wasn't just that she was upset, it was the intensity of it. The way she had stormed off like we had personally taken something from her. By the time I crawled into my tent that night, I had almost convinced myself to let it go. Almost. Then, just as the first light of morning crept over the hills, a loud, aggressive pounding shook the camper door. I jolted awake, my heart slamming into my ribs. From the other side of the camper, Ryan groaned. Who the hell is knocking it? He checked his watch. 6 in the damn morning? Emily pulled a blanket over her head. Ignore it. But the pounding continued, relentless. Dragging myself up, I stumbled to the door and pulled it open. Standing in front of me was a uniformed sheriff's deputy. His hat tilted slightly forward, a tired expression in his eyes. Behind him, a police cruiser was parked near the edge of our makeshift campsite. And just past that, standing with her arms crossed and a smug smile on her face, was Debbie. The deputy gave me a curt nod. Morning, sir. Mind stepping out for a chat? I didn't have to ask what this was about. I already knew. By now, the others had started stirring. Ryan appeared behind me, bleary-eyed but alert. Madison and Emily emerged from their tents. And Jake leaned against the camper, arms folded. What's going on? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. The deputy sighed. We got a report of trespassing. Your neighbor over there claims you're on private property without permission. For a second, I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Instead, I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay calm. Actually, I said, this is our property. We purchased it last month. I have the deed inside if you'd like to see it. The deputy nodded. That would help. I quickly retrieved the folder containing all the legal paperwork. As the deputy flipped through the documents, Debbie's expression began to shift. First, she frowned. Then, her face turned an alarming shade of red. Finally, the deputy closed the folder and handed it back to me. Well, everything checks out, he said. You're definitely the legal owners. Sorry for the inconvenience. I exhaled in relief. But Debbie wasn't about to give up so easily. You're just going to take their word for it? She snapped. Marching closer. They probably forged those papers. My family's been on this land for decades. This isn't right. The deputy turned toward her with a look of growing impatience. Ma'am, they've provided legal proof of ownership. There's nothing more I can do. Her face twisted with rage. But there was something else behind it now, something deeper. Desperation. This land was never supposed to be sold. She hissed. They had no right. And with that, she spun on her heel and stormed back toward her house. The deputy lingered for a moment, as if debating whether to say something. Then he glanced toward Debbie's house and sighed. Look, he said quietly, I probably shouldn't tell you this. But you should know what you're dealing with. We all leaned in. She's the ex-wife of the guy who used to own this land. He explained. She lived over there during their marriage. When they split, he kept this property, and she kept the house next door. He sold it to you folks a few months back. But I guess she hasn't taken it well. I felt a pang of unease as his words sank in. Suddenly, her behavior made a twisted kind of sense. This wasn't just some random patch of land to her. It was tied to her past. Her history. Maybe even her identity. The deputy tipped his hat again. Good luck, he said before climbing back into his cruiser and driving away. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Madison let out a long whistle. Well, damn. Jake exhaled. Yeah. Ryan stretched, yawning. All right, so can we go back to pretending she doesn't exist now? We tried, but somehow, we all knew, this wasn't over yet. In the months that followed, things slowly began to settle. With Debbie gone, the land finally felt like it was truly ours. We built 2 beautiful log cabins, each with a wraparound porch that overlooked the stream. The inside was rustic and cozy, filled with hand-built furniture and the scent of fresh pine. Ryan cleared hiking trails that wound through the hills, perfect for late afternoon walks. Emily made sure everything stayed within budget. And Madison, true to form, kept our spirits high with endless laughter and late-night stories around the fire. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sun set over the hills, I reflected on everything we had been through. The land had tested us, our patience, our determination, even our sanity. Debbie's obsession had been more than just an inconvenience, it had been a painful reminder of how deeply people can be tied to places. To memories, to the things they've lost. But this land was ours now. And we were building something beautiful, not just a place, but a future, a sanctuary where we could always return. I took a deep breath, letting the crisp evening air fill my lungs. The stars were just beginning to appear, reflecting in the gentle stream below. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Life Stories for more real-life experiences. See you in the next video.